Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cyber Posture Live Fire Chat session. I hope everyone is doing good today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Just a small recap. The last week's Cyber Posture was about information security in district corporate banks. As we explore more in the world of cybersecurity, let us today discuss about the most important topic revolving around cyber risk quantification, and this will particularly be in the BFSI sector. As we move forward in the session, we will cover all the necessary points and areas of it. Today, uh, today we have our own co-founder and CTO, Mr. Santosh Kumar Jha, who will shed light on this topic. Through his extensive expertise, we shall gain profound insights into the significance of cyber risk quantification in the BFSI sector. And let's delve deeply into various facets of the subject matter. So, without a further ado, please join me as I welcome our co-founder and CTO, Mr. Santosh. Hi, Santosh. How are you?
Hi Ankit, thank you so much. I'm doing great, man. Thank you. How are you?
Thank- I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for joining today. So, as I said, we are constantly diving deep in the cybersecurity, right? And to gain right knowledge for making informed decisions is very important. So, to start off with, let's make things a bit simple for everyone. Let's start with what exactly cyber quantification in common language, and why is there intensive need of the cyber risk quantification in the BFSI sector?
Okay, sure. Okay. So, cyber is quantification. Right? Imagine it's like putting a price tag on the cyber risk. Okay. Now let's say, for example, do you drive car, Ankit?
Yes, sure. Yes.
Okay. Now let's assume hypothetically you met with an accident, right?
Okay.
You know that
Mhm.
at the front or the rear bumper is broken or something. You immediately
Yep.
think of something. Okay, oh no, this is going to cost me around 10,000 rupees or something.
Yes.
Correct. Now
Yep.
let's just imagine this particular scenario with in the cybersecurity space.
Mhm.
If there is a vulnerability which has been there, like which is there in the critical systems. Now, does a CISO or does any security professional would be able to quantify that? They do not as of right now moment. Right?
Mhm.
So if they are given the value that okay, hey, this is a risk, and this is the price tag which would require in order to fix those, right? Then they would be able to utilize the resources and other things as well in a more, I'll say, well mannered as well, right? So it's like assigning a monetary value to the potential financial losses which is arising from the cyber attacks, right? Making it easier to understand and prioritize the cybersecurity investment that the organization do.
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
you mentioned why is there a need for cyber risk quantification, especially in the BFSI sector.
Mhm.
I would like to say that it's not just the BFSI sector, but it's a need for almost all of the sectors, whether it's BFSI, whether it's manufacturing, IT, ITS, or any other as well. Right? But specifically, why BFSI? Because it's the second most attacked sector after healthcare, as per the IBM study. Right?
Mhm.
And what the CRQ platform, like or CRQ would help these BFS sector in justifying the cybersecurity spend. Right? It helps them to justify the cybersecurity spend that they are doing. It helps them to prioritize risk and resources as well. Right? Let's
Mhm.
assume that or in my team I have just two members. Right? Now there are 100 vulnerabilities which I need to fix. Right?
Mhm.
Now like how would I prioritize these things among or how would I distribute these 100 vulnerabilities among two members of my team? Right? So it helps in
Correct.
prioritizing resources as well. And finally, it also helps in making an improved decision making steps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was very in a very layman language. You explained it very well, and I hope everyone understood that. So, moving on, I would also want to know what are the measures in this market. obviously cyber risk quantification is there. So what are the measures and what should be the plan for action for the CISOs or the decision makers, let's say?
So there are a few measures which is there in the market as of now, right? To start off with, there is balance scorecard. The like there are other methodologies as well, which is the opportunity cost method, right? And
Mhm.
cybersecurity program maturity is also there, and financial data risk assessment is also there as well, right? And there is another methodologies which I think almost all of the audience would be aware about as well is the FAIR model, right?
Correct.
And which is very unfair, I'll say, right? Primarily because of multiple reasons and
Correct.
assumption that it takes in place. But yeah, still. So these are the measures that is still there in the market right now as we speak about. Right? And for a CISO, what I'll say is for each and every organization, right, the way they perceive the cyber risk quantifications is different, right? And because like I'll say for the BFSI sector, the cyber risk scenarios is different. For manufacturing come organization, the cyber risk scenarios are different, and thus the way the attackers are also are targeting them is different.
Mhm.
So CISO should ideally look for four different types of risk to begin with. First is the, I'll say, internal risk, right? Second is the, I'll say, business and compliance risk. Right? Third is the external risk, and the fourth is the, I'll say, mandate and the regulatory mandates. All these kind of risk.
Correct.
Now they should practice this in the organizations as well in terms of in terms of plan of actions. If I speak about is there should be an automated and a continuous analysis of the different attack surfaces, right? Because
Correct.
around 80% of the, I'll say, threats that is there in the organizations come from the external world itself, right? So they
Mhm.
should try to automate this entire automated and continuously analysis of this attack surface.
Got
Second
it.
is the risk calculations, right? So whatever model that they apply or whatever algorithm that they applied, it should
Correct.
provide them with a clear justification. Okay, hey, that this is the particular values or cyber value at risk, and these are the specific reasons through which this cyber value at risk is happening. So proper justification of that is also necessary. Along with this, the most important is empower the security leaders with the necessary guidance and actionable steps to reduce cyber risk. Right? It can be
Right.
anyone, starting from security analyst to the board and everyone. So there are a few plans which CISO can take upon.
Correct. Correct. Also, I would like everyone, if you have any questions regarding this topic or anything you want to ask, please just drop it down in the comment section. We'll surely get to take it up. Moving on, Santosh, also, like, let's get to the next question. So, what unique challenges do financial institutions face when it comes to cybersecurity, and how are these challenges addressed through cyber risk quantification?
Okay, that's a great question, Ankit. So unique challenges in terms of financial institution, I'd say, is these financial institutions, especially in India, is like highly regulated by RBI, by other regulatory bodies as well. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, so regulatory compliance becomes a huge challenge for them, right? In terms of
Correct.
getting the compliance correct, and in terms of, I'll say, the compliance and making the cybersecurity implementations as well, going hand in hand. Along with that, the ever increasing attack surface. Right. So
Right.
right now, if we initially talk about the banks, initially they only had, I'll say, internet website, right, wherein we can
Mhm.
go and check the like do NEFT transaction or something like that. Right now
Correct.
there is mobile application as well. We have UPI
Right.
transaction as well, right? So the attack surface is constantly increasing, and it
Right.
won't be decreasing anytime soon.
Sure. Sure.
Now, so that's one another challenge as well. Which, along with that, the sensitivity of data is quite
Mhm.
important, right? So the financial institution, they have to make sure because they have almost all of the financial details of each and every individual, right? So they have to make sure that their data are properly stored, even during at a time of transmission as well. It's properly encrypted and transmitted. Right? So these things, as well as I'll say the complex IT systems that are there,
Mhm.
in order to provide the end user customers a proper, I'll say, user experience, or I'll say proper flow as well, to
Right.
in order to meet their financial needs, everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
So these are few of the challenges that financial institutions face, right, to submit up
Mhm.
regulatory compliances, the large attack surfaces, right, the data sensitivity problems, and the complex IT systems as well.
Right. Right.
Now, how CRQ could be beneficial here, right, is it would be able to provide a data-driven approach to cybersecurity. Right? How? It's like by analyzing all of the, I'll say, internal assets as well as the external threats that is there in the organizations.
Mhm.
The organizations has the data, right? The platform does the analysis and everything and provide them with a proper numerical value. It's let's assume that if a board of directors or someone who is non-technical, right, in nature,
Mhm.
if I tell them that, okay, hey, this is a particular cyber risk that is originating, right, and this is the numerical value or the financial loss that would happen to the organization as a whole, right, they would also
Right.
be able to prioritize, okay, yes, yes, since these are the things, right, I know that this cost me higher, then I'll try to fix this particular solution first,
Correct.
and then goes hand on hand, right? So that's the
Right.
a data-driven approach that would be very helpful. Second is like enabling informed decision making, right? Resource allocations towards critical vulnerabilities and other aspects as well. And it's also like, since banks, I'll say, or financial institutions, they have different departments, and most of the
Right.
department work in silos. Okay,
Mhm.
and but it on this particular platform would provide them with a central place wherein each and every department can coordinate as well, right, and
Mhm.
can give like, because, and I'll say, cybersecurity is not a just like the responsibility of the security professionals in the organization. It's a
Absolutely.
responsibility of each
Absolutely.
and every individual as well, right?
Totally agreed.
So instead of working in silos, bringing everyone in the same platform, or by
Mhm.
quantifying the risk as well, everyone would be able to understand what is the risk originating from their plan of actions or their necessary steps. So
Right.
this helps in informed decision making across the organization.
Mhm.
Next is I'll say, it will help in the compliance part as well, CRQ, right? By supporting regulatory, I'll say, reporting documents and other necessary things that is there. Right? So
Right.
recently there was this circular released by SEC US, right?
Mhm.
Now, in that they mentioned the term materiality more than 38 times. So it means like how the cyber risk is materializing in terms of quantifications, right? So then
Correct.
each organization need to take care of those things as well.
Mhm.
Yes. So the other few things
Oh,
CRQ can help in
right.
and be helpful.
Absolutely good. So we have a couple of questions. Uh, we have a question. Soham asks, are there any limitations of the SRQ model being used in today's world?
So yes, there are a lot of limitations as well, right? If I talk about the today's algorithm to or today's CRQ model, which is there, right,
Mhm.
in the market right now, and these limitations are mostly towards the approach. I'll say, like how the approach is being done towards creating those models. If I take into, let's assume, if I take into a lot of assumption from my end itself, right, I
Mhm.
won't be able to provide a accurate result in terms of
Correct.
cyber risk quantifications.
Yeah.
Even if I take a lot of inputs from the organization itself, it becomes a hassle free, I'll say, hassle for the organization, because they do not have those kind of informations available with them as well, right?
Yeah.
So there
Makes
has
sense.
to be a optimum balance between what are the kind of inputs that we are taking from the organizations, as well as what are the kind of inputs or assumptions that we are making.
Correct.
And even those assumptions, I'll say, should be like broadcasted publicly as well. It should be made transparent.
Right.
So
Right.
yes,
Right.
Soham, there are a lot of limitations in the CRQ model, which is being used today.
Right. So we have another question. Amrin asks, given the rapidly evolving nature of cyber threats, what future trends and innovation do you foresee in the field of cyber risk quantification for the BFSI sector? And how are we prepared to stay ahead of these challenges?
Okay, given the rapidly evolving nature of cyber threats, understood. Okay, so this cyber threats would keep on changing. Like I'll say, right now, healthcare, as I mentioned at the start, healthcare
Mhm.
is the most attacked sector, right? Second number is financial institutions, right? It can
Right,
happen in the next 1 year or so, right? The financial institution has taken as the number one spot, right? Now, the in the future trends and innovations, I'll say, and especially in terms of quantification, since the topic is decoding cyber risk quantifications, right?
yeah.
One has to approach this quantifications in multiple aspects or multiple perspective, right? If I go and simply approach this particular problem in one way, right,
Mhm.
this this is not a fit for all solution. Like this won't be fit for everyone, right?
Correct.
So each and every organizations, each and every, like say for example, if I'm operating from India, or if our same company is operating from US, the risk scenarios are different,
Different.
right?
Correct.
Now I'll say there is not a fit like one solution which is fit for everyone, right? But
Mhm.
like there has to be keep on like additions of different perspective into the model as well, right? Into the cyber risk
Right.
quantification model. And I'll say like a lot of these risk scenarios which has been generated has to be streamlined or has to be centralized with respect to the regulatory bodies compliance or regulatory bodies mandates, keeping those things in mind as well, right?
Right. Right.
Otherwise it would be like, okay, hey, the compliance part or the mandate part is going in one direction and the cyber risk is in one direction, but it's not
Different.
like that. They both are
Right.
dependent on each other.
Correct.
And so in order to like stay ahead of these challenges, I'll say cyber risk can come from any direction, right?
Mhm.
So staying known, right, through which direction the risk can come, right, that's the most important factor which would help us to stay ahead of these challenges.
Right. So one more question we have from Mr. Subramanya. He says, a CRQ interests us from an insurance perspective in Middle East. So he just wants to connect maybe. We have noted it down. Yeah. Sure.
Sure.
We just yeah. Um Question from Francis. He says, how can the financial institution initiate to streamline the security measures aligning with CRQ?
uh, Again, I think some questions are being repetitive as well, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
How can the financial institution initiate to streamline their cyber security measures aligning with the CRQ? I'll say right now, whatever security measures is being taken into account, right? Those
Mhm.
have to be aligned with the CRQ. It's like CRQ is just we are putting a price tag on each and every measures that is being
Right.
taken into account. Right? It's
Mhm.
nothing that CRQ is a different, I'll say, different directions, or it's a program which is running parallelly. It's not like that. Let's assume CRQ would help the organizations or would help the security leaders make an informed decision by giving them a context of each and every risk originating from different scenarios,
Mhm.
right? So to answer this question, right, whatever security measures is been taken into account, right, if those measures, right, are made through CRQ models, right, which would help them to prioritize things, right, that
Right.
would help the financial institution a lot, because there are a lot of vulnerabilities and there are a lot of threats
Exactly.
which would keep on coming, right?
Correct.
As someone mentioned as well in the previous comment, so there are a lot of threats that would keep on coming. Now the
Right.
question is to which threat to tackle first, and this is where the cyber risk contribution would help, because everything at the end of the day it boils down to business. If
Right.
the business
Right.
is not running, why would any board of directors or why would any top management would invest in security, right?
Right.
So security initially it used to be a IT problem, but right now
Mhm.
it's a function of business as well. So yes.
Right. 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 So I have like the questions that lined up. We'll go with that first. So there are various methods of quantifying a cyber risk, right? How do you integrate and leverage different methodologies to provide a comprehensive understanding of cyber risk for the BFSI clients?
Can you repeat the last question?
Sure. So there are various methods of quantifying cyber risks. How do you integrate and leverage different methodologies to provide a comprehensive understanding of cyber risks for the BFSI clients?
Understood. Okay. So Ankit, here as I mentioned earlier, like there is no single method that fits for all. Okay.
Right.
So different methodologies, which can include Monte Carlo simulations, loss database, fair model, and
Right.
other things as well. They offer very
Mhm.
huge insights as well, right? Unique insights, I'll say. Now, so in order to, I'll say, integrate, we should take a hybrid approach instead. Now,
Right.
what is this hybrid approach I'm talking about? It's taking quantitative as well as qualitative risk into account as well, because
Mhm.
everything cannot be quantified to a very accurate level. Let's say if I speak about, right, like
Mhm.
how are you doing, right? You would say, okay, I'm
Right.
doing fine, good, great, or
Right.
something. You won't say I'm doing 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So it's like,
Correct.
we should also not forget about the qualitative part, but also we have to take both these approach together in order to
Mhm.
get a, like I'll say, more accurate result, right?
Right.
Along with this, there are other algorithms as well which we are taking into account as well, which is a weighted average, right? And this weighted average is based on the relevance of risk, right? And relevance of risk towards different organizations, right? So let's assume that if an organization is operating from Russia or Ukraine at the time of Russia-Ukraine war, the risk factor for that particular organization would be very high as compared to someone operating from, I'll say, US or India at the same time, right?
Right.
So that's the weighted average I'm talking about. Along with this, what we have is modeling of different risk scenarios which should be taken into account. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, hey, since I'm into an insurance sector, right? Or let's say someone is into manufacturing sector, right? Now, the kind of risk that is associated for them would be different, right? So, how accurately and I'll say how much we can cover all the different types of risk, that matters a lot as well. So, to answer your question in short, right, we should take a hybrid approach wherein qualitative as well as quantitative approach should be way going forward. Along with that, certain models are required, as in weighted average could be taken, for example, and modeling of different kind of risk scenarios.
Right. Um, we have a question from Francis. As
Yeah,
the ongoing revolution in cybersecurity, how cyber risk quantification is going to help India compared to USA?
that's a great question, Francis. So, how CRQ is going to help India? Right. Let's assume, if I talk from the national level perspective itself, okay, US has released this materiality thing, okay, and that is their organizations, whosoever is there, have to keep the quantification aspect of cyber risk in place. India is a very, I'll say in terms of cybersecurity, it's very growing. It's growing in nature, right? And in the coming days, right, this CRQ would play a very vital role in prioritizing, in informing, or in helping the top leaders. It would be of nation, it would be of organizations, right, in tackling the particular scenarios or in tackling the threats that is coming. So if I say, like, recently Europe also released their DORA program,
Mhm.
right? That is the resilience act that they have released, right?
Correct.
And this resilience act is something which is very much like anticipated, I'll say very much highly anticipated across the world
Mhm.
itself, right? And in the coming days, uh, like we are working with certain government bodies as well, which would help to bring out, I'll say, CRQ at a national level, right? And thereby help India in getting that resilience in place.
Right. We have a question from Soham. He asks, what advice would you give to the organizations who are looking forward to implement CRQ?
Okay. So I'll say, in order to implement CRQ, right? First, my question would be, why would you want to go for CRQ, right? This thing should be clear,
Right.
because like just implementing CRQ platform or CRQ models, right, and not acting upon that, because I have seen some like companies as well, which they have taken a lot of solutions in place, but and they're not using it currently at the moment.
Mhm.
Right? So simply just implementing it won't do good, right? But acting on it would make the lives of each and every individual in the organization easier.
Right.
And so I'll say, in order to implement CRQ, have the basic necessities in already in place, starting from compliances, starting from, I'll say, you should know your data. You should know your, I'll say, what matters to you the most. You should know what are the critical systems that is, I'll say, I'll say, very much important to you, and not just from the technical point of view, but also from the business point of view as well, because CRQ helps the business leaders to make an informed decision
Right. Right.
about cybersecurity.
Mhm.
So these are the few things which I would say an organization should take into account while implementing cyber risk quantification.
Right. So the last question we'll take from the audience is from Aitur. He says, how should a CRQ framework be chosen? What is optimal for a company?
So CRQ framework, I'll say there are very few CRQ framework, right, which is widely used, and like I'll say, to one thing, for an organization perspective, there is no particular like optimal solution, right, or optimal framework wherein a CRQ could be used. Or rather, which framework should a or an organization should take, right? There is no optimal, I'll say, formula or particular guidance for that. Right? But what they should do, look after, is why they should need the CRQ. What are the things that they want to protect through CRQ? What are the problem statement that they are looking to, I'll say, solve through the cyber risk quantification? It's mostly
Right.
about prioritization and risk association as well, right?
Mhm.
And in terms of CRQ framework, there are framework like, I'll say, fair model is there as well, right? Now it depends upon the organization as well, that how much risk appetite the organization have. If they have a
Right.
risk appetite of, let's say, of around 50 to 60% margin or something, right?
Mhm.
Now they can go away with any, I'll say, widely used framework as well. But
Right.
if they want to, if they are going for a cyber insurance, if they are planning to reduce their risk
Mhm.
altogether, right, they should look for a more optimum solution as well, optimum framework, which gives them insights from different types of risk.
Right. Right.
And that's how, I'll say, an organization should choose for a, I'll say, CRQ framework.
Correct. So we have a question from Sanket. He asks, is CRQ applicable for startups?
Okay, it's I'll say more of a tricky question. Okay, in terms of CRQ could be applicable for a startup. Like, how do you define a startup? Even Flipkart or other companies are also startup, right? And so, in order to say, like, there has to be a certain level of threshold, right? After that, right, they can implement CRQ, which would help them in prioritizing things accordingly, right?
Right.
Because if I say, for example, if I recently start a company just 2 days back, right, and I want to implement CRQ in my startup, this won't be possible,
Right.
because
Right.
an startup do not have that, I'll say that standard and maturity as well in order to implement that solution in mind, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, I'll say for startups which is just born, right? I think CRQ is not the applicable solution for them. They should focus more on the security aspect, like each and everything like from the application layer till network layer and other things, right?
Correct. So we'll conclude with the last question I had for you. So the last question from my side is, in the context of cyber risk quantification, how do you assess and quantify potential monetary loss for the BFSI organizations? And how does the information guide decision making and resource allocation in the security strategies?
Okay. So, in order to assess and quantify potential monetary loss, I'll say there are different types of loss as well, right? Let's assume there are certain direct cost, right, and there are indirect cost. So direct cost means a proper data breach or someone where there is a regulatory fines, right? There is, let's assume my e-commerce website is up and like the that system is down right now, right? Then what is the particular I'll say business interruption that would happen during that point of time, right? So these are some of the direct cost which happens, right? And in indirect cost, I'll say reputational damage, right? There is some customer churn, right, or business churn as well, like lost business opportunities as well, right? Now these are some of the uh, I'll say factors which we take into account, right, in order to assess and quantify potential monetary loss for the BFSI organizations. All right.
Right.
Now, one thing is, as you mentioned, like this information guide decision making, right? And
Mhm.
resource allocation, how could they do it? Correct.
Right. Right.
Now, depending upon the priorities, it's like let's assume that I have certain vulnerabilities, or like say there are, as I mentioned, there are two types of direct costs, right? Data breaches and regulatory fines.
Agree.
Right? Now I can look after that. Okay, hey, since this is a regulatory fine, right, and this fine is much higher than the data breach fine, or the vice versa, it can also happen, right? Now depending upon that, I can prioritize, okay, hey, this is the first thing that I will be doing, and this is the second thing. If I have the proper bandwidth in my organization to do both in parallel, right, so I can do the first two things in parallel followed with the second and third thing, right?
Right. Right.
So this is how like the decision making should work, right, in terms of
Right.
like so that everyone is aligned with respect to the business sense as well.
Right. So Sanket sir has question again from his last question, the continuation of the question, I guess. How to understand when to start with CRQ then?
Okay,
So it's a continuation of the last question, I guess.
understood. Yeah. So let's, if you have ever faced a problem saying, okay, hey, I have a very low bandwidth in my team, and let's assume that like I've got a lot of vulnerabilities. I don't know what to prioritize,
Mhm.
right? I don't know how to allocate my resources, right?
Right.
If these are some of the questions that comes to your mind, right, then you can feel free and start using CRQ.
Right. A very crisp and like insightful answer. So that was it from my side too. And it was amazing to have and discuss about CRQ with you. And I really hope to have another session with you in some other topic. We really hope to see that soon.
Sure,
So
Ankit, same here.
thank you
Thank you.
so much. Thank you so much for giving your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankit.
Yeah. So that was our co-founder and CTO. We discussed on the CRQ, decoding the CRQ model in the BFSI sector. I hope everyone of you liked it, and there were a lot of questions that we answered, and it was a good interactive session. So we'll see everyone in the next week with another guest with another topic, and I hope to see you all in the next episode too. So this was it from my side this week. See you all in the next episode. Till then, take care.